welcome back to Miss Bell's classroom. Today in class, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite things to do and something that I find very interesting. So I hope that you enjoy this. So today we're going to be talking about sleep, and hopefully this will help you sleep as well. So we're just going to kind of talk about, sleep, how to get a good night's rest sleep, sleep patterns, stages, things that can happen if you don't get enough sleep. Also, we're going to be talking about, the required amount of sleep, through your life cycle. So when you're an infant, child, teenager, adult, when you're elderly too as well. So we're going to go ahead and talk about that today. So I hope that you enjoy this lesson. So to start off, kind of just going to give a little bit of facts about sleep. So sleep is a state of lessened consciousness, lessened movement of the skeletal muscles, and a slowed down metabolism. So some kind of interesting facts about sleep. We spend a third of our life asleep. Sleep is an active process, so no organ in your body shuts down. It's just decreasing in its metabolic rate. Okay, so it's still working, but slower pace. Some brain activity increases during sleep. So many parts of the brain are as active as awake periods, so at least 2 hours of dream state per night. You don't always remember your dreams, though. So specific hormones increase during sleep. Growth hormone, melatonin, and specific cues exist for regulation of sleep. So for each, life cycles, you're going to see a change in the sleep needed. So infants need about 16 to 20 hours a day. Toddlers need about 12 to 14 hours a day of sleep. Preschool age, about 11 to 13 hours a day. School age, 10 to 11 hours. Teens, about 9.5 to 10 hours. And most adults need about 7.5 to 8 hours to function well. And about 10%, require more or less sleep. And pregnant women need more sleep. So within sleep, we're going to talk about some sleep patterns. Okay, so there are 4 stages of sleep during a normal night. Stages 1 to 3, or non-REM, which is rapid eye movement, and REM, rapid eye movement. So during non-REM sleep, many of the kind of restorative functions of sleep occur. During REM sleep, memories and thoughts from the day are processed. So stages kind of progress, 1 to 3, then REM, then you restart back at stage 1. So one complete cycle takes about 90 to 110 minutes. First cycles have, relatively short REM sleeps. REM sleep time increases in later cycles. So we're going to go ahead and talk a little bit about these sleep stages now and what that looks like. Okay, so we have stage 1, and you're going to go through kind of cycles of these. So stage 1, it's a very light sleep. You kind of drift in and out. You awaken easily. Your eyes move slowly. Muscle activity slows. And you may experience, some sort of kind of like falling feeling, followed by a sudden muscle contraction. We have stage 2. Stage 2, the eye movement stops, and brain waves are slower. Got the occasional burst of rapid waves. And then we have stage 3. So kind of going deeper and deeper. This is extremely slow waves, which are called delta waves. And it's interpreted with, smaller, faster waves. This is considered deep sleep. Okay, so no eye movement or muscle movements, difficult to awaken. the time when sleepwalking or terrors might occur would be stage 3. Okay, so you're sleep talking, sleepwalking, things like that. And then after stage 3, you have the REM or rapid eye movement stage. This is considered kind of the deep sleep. Okay, so when you're in REM, your brain waves increase to the awake level. Most dreams occur during REM. And, there's actually physical changes during REM. So, you want to think about, most people have about 3 to 5 intervals of REM each night. Infants spend 50% of their time in REM. Adults spend nearly half of the time in stage 2, though. So stage 2 is, eye movement stops, but your brain waves are shorter, and you've got those occasional bursts of, rapid waves. So most of that. So thinking about, this REM, that's kind of the deep sleep where your memories are coming. Your muscles are kind of temporarily paralyzed in REM. You can maybe jerk rapidly. There's an increase in your breathing rate as well. So those are kind of some of the things in REM sleep. Just saying that stage is very interesting. So the next thing that we're going to talk about are kind of some sleep disorders. So something that's interesting, children actually, have a lot of sleep problems. 25 to 40% of children have sleep disorders. 10% snore, so just things like that. So there are some contributors of sleep, deprivation. So not going to bed. So an inadequate time in bed. So, kind of you must be productive mentality. You're not trying to sleep, things like that. Some people may have the attitude that sleeping is, for the lazy. It's not necessary. And typically people get 1.5 hours less of sleep since 1910. So we're sleeping less. And there are different factors that contribute to this. So poor sleep hygiene, which would include things like, having a relaxing routine, taking a bath, having a regular sleep schedule, limiting kind of those stimulating behaviors, so caffeine, spicy exercise, things like that. You want to have a good, sleep hygiene, which is what we'll call it. And then also there's sleep disorders. So there's some other contributors: genetics, aging, diabetes, pain, medications, stress, snoring, insomnia, which affects 9 to 12% of people, restless leg syndrome. There's actually over 80 disorders that can affect your sleep, probably more. So general, symptoms of a sleep problem might include kind of a performance decrease, so maybe in academics, physically, maybe at work. If you're not getting enough sleep, it's going to affect your life. Behavioral difficulties, irritable, hyperactive, maybe you're sick a lot, your immune system's down, headaches, jaw pain, earaches, depression, anxiety, daytime sleepiness. So there are a few signs of, sleep deprivation. Even needing an alarm clock to wake up is one, which is interesting. Falling asleep within 5 minutes of hitting the pillow. Well-rested people often take 10 to 15 minutes. Napping easily, things like that. Another thing that we're going to talk about today is insomnia. So 1/3 of Americans are affected by insomnia. 50% consider their insomnia very serious, and 10% have been prescribed a medication for the insomnia. So there's different kinds of insomnia. We've got transient insomnia, insomnia, which is less than 2 weeks. So you've been having this problem less than 2 weeks. Okay. And then we have intermittent. And intermittent is when it's repetitive episodes of this transient. So maybe it happens less than 2 weeks, but then it keeps happening. And then we also have chronic. And chronic insomnia is insomnia greater than 6 months. And this actually affects, 20 million Americans a year. So we have transient, intermittent, and chronic. So when you think about this, 4 out of 10 adults, sleepiness interferes with their activities a few days each month. So sleep is very important, and it can have kind of some consequences if you're not getting enough. 20% of adult sleepiness interferes a few days a week or more. The direct cost of sleep-related problems in the United States is about $16 billion. Indirect is $50 to $100 billion. Kind of go into depth about that. So when you don't get enough sleep, you're going to have poor functioning. That could affect, drowsy driving. So sleep deprived, you're at a 2 to 4 times greater risk of an accident, disasters. A lot of them are contributed to judgment from tiredness, sleepiness, so like the 3 Mile Island, Challenger, things like that can be attributed to, poor functioning, maybe not getting enough sleep. Work performance and accidents, contributes to, missing work, less productivity, mistakes at work, and maybe even work accidents. So things like that can increase because your brain is not functioning as high. And you're not going to have as great of performance. Medical errors can also occur from that. There's also health consequences, so cardiovascular system can be affected. It can increase your risk of heart disease, increase in blood pressure if you're not getting enough sleep, increased risk for heart attacks, strokes, things like that. So you want to make sure you're getting sleep so your body can regulate. Also the endocrine system. So it can affect the appetite. It's a regulating hormone, so if you're not getting enough sleep, it might make you feel more hungry. Diabetes, it can affect obesity, thyroid, things like that. The stress hormone as well. So if you're not getting enough sleep, you might feel more stressed. The nervous system, memory, and learning is affected. So balance is affected from not getting enough sleep. So there's actually more falls. You have a 2 to 4 times greater risk of falling if you're not getting enough sleep. There's an increase of tremors, seizures, increase in pain, frequent headaches. Mental health is also affected. So things affecting your mood, maybe making you feel more irritable, more anxious. And then you're just going to have a decreased quality of life if you're not getting enough sleep. Early death, it's actually less than 6 hours of sleep per night. You have a 15 to 30% greater risk of, death, early death, regardless of cause. So there are different ways that you can treat, sleep disorders or having difficulty sleeping. So having good sleep hygiene. medications, therapy, stress management, relaxation techniques. And then a lot of people, when they sleep, they grind. So you can use mouth guards, surgery, things like that. Kind of extreme, but just options. So something that I think is very important is before you go to sleep, kind of having this stimulus control. So making sure that your bed is used for sleeping. You're limiting other activities. You're not eating, reading, watching TV, studying, work, hobbies. That has its own space. So you're not doing that in bed. You go to bed when you are drowsy. So don't go to bed when you're not feeling tired. And you just lay there feeling kind of frustrated. If you don't fall asleep within 20 minutes, get up and leave the bedroom. Read something kind of dull. Make sure that your room and bed are comfortable. You don't have clutter. You're keeping your bedroom temperature cool. Lighting is low. You're exposing yourself to bright lights during the day only. Bed sheets, pajamas, comfortable. They're not kind of binding on you. And then another thing is sleep hygiene, which we talked a little bit about earlier. So sleep hygiene, you've got a relaxing routine. Maybe a warm bath shower before bed, quiet activities, lower lights. You have a regular sleep schedule. So you're going to bed and getting up at normal times. Same time. You also want to limit naps when you're tired at night. You're limiting stimulating behaviors before bedtime. So limit caffeine. Limit alcohol after dinner. Limit large or spicy meals. And then vigorous exercise. Limit 4 to 6 hours before bed. So your heart rate's going to be up. You're not going to feel as tired. De-stress, learn relaxation techniques, physical and mental. Maintain a regular physical activity routine. So physical activity can help with stress. It can also make your body feel more tired, and fitness is actually reported to help with better sleep quality. Don't go to bed hungry or too full. So you can have, maybe a light snack before. Practice kind of that stimulus control, which we talked about earlier. And the last thing that we're going to talk about today is kind of the, how your need for sleep changes throughout your life cycle. So the first thing we're going to talk about is newborn and infant sleep. So as a newborn, there are kind of 2 stages, which we talked about earlier. 50% quiet or non-rapid eye movement, and then 50% REM sleep. So they split 50-50. So the total sleep time for an infant is about 16 to 20 hours a day, with frequent awakenings for feeding and kind of nurturing. After that stage, we've got children. So ages 1 to 5. So children need about 12 to kind of 13 hours of sleep. So generally they sleep through the night. They may take some naps during the day. So after children, we've got kind of middle childhood, which is from 5 to 12 years old. Okay. So the total sleep time for them is 10 to 12 hours. This is kind of when, children might experience, some sleep problems, nightmares, sleepwalking, things like that. Common in that age. I wouldn't say common, I would say more just that's when they might start to appear. And then adolescence. So adolescence being ages 12 to 18. So adolescents need about 9 hours a at night for kind of optimal health, emotional well-being, and kind of that cognitive functioning as well. Often experience kind of a delayed sleep phase. They can't go to sleep until late at night or prefer to sleep in later in the morning. Frequently, they don't get enough sleep. Same with adolescents. And the next stage is adulthood. So with adulthood, adults typically need about 7 to 8 hours of sleep. So typically in adulthood, you might see more problem sleeping, including kind of apnea, insomnia, restless leg syndrome, things like that. It's going to be more common for adulthood. And then ages 65 plus, you're still going to need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. It may decrease as little as to 6 hours a night, with naps common during the day. There's an increased number of nighttime awakenings, frequently awake very early in the morning, and sleep may be impacted by, illness, pain, medications, things like that. So that's kind of a little overview of how sleep needs change throughout the life cycle, and what sleep is, what kind of sleep, the stages, what you can do to get a better night's rest. I hope that this is helpful, and I hope that you are sleeping now, and I hope that you have a peaceful night, and good night.